All right. We are back for season 2 after an arduous 3 episodes last year, Nick. What did we do? We did 3 episodes and decided we needed a 6-week holiday to then
Yeah,
stop doing the podcast.
overworked.
But yeah, overworked, government mandated podcast break. And now we're back for season 2 with some pretty good guests and ideas coming up this year. But how has the Australian Summer of Cycling been for NOC?
Good, busy time. Nationals was very exciting. Yeah, the majority of people rode well. It's, very hard racing for a lot of the riders. The Nationals coming up against World Tour riders. Yeah, I think all in all was really good trip to Perth, led by our special guest who won the National Criterium solo and then almost won the road race. Could have. And then TDU was again really exciting, and then finished off with Cadell. So it's a really busy time in January, and then it'll just continue now. Europe starts in a couple of weeks, and there's some track racing coming up. But I think it was really I really enjoyed January. It's a really fun time to have everyone back and be able to see people race. Very exciting. You guys, you raced yourself, Jack. I saw you at Nationals.
Yes, did race. Fortunately, copped a DNF with a lap and a half to go, but it was it was pretty epic. Good race, definitely my favourite race of the year every year. And then over to kick off the Pro Velo season, and looking after heaps of athletes, doing all sorts of racing. It's definitely my favourite time of year. Bill's also been very busy on deck with us at Pinnacle. How's everything going on your end, Dill?
Yeah, it's been really good. First time in Perth to watch Nationals, and first time in that city altogether, and pretty much only saw Malcolm Street handing out bottles for 3 days. So that was a good bit of fun, supporting some really good performances and some really good people there, and into a new role within Pinnacle as a DS for the Pro Velo League. So kicked that off in SA Kickit. Had a blast, and we're sort of all prepping towards Tassie now and the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. We are super lucky to kick off our 2026 podcast with a fantastic guest. We've got one of your athletes, Nick, Ruby Roseman-Gannon, on today. Welcome to the pod, Ruby. A great cyclist, as has been covered in many podcasts, and already off to a great start in summer, but more importantly, just an absolute legend human being. Super stoked to have you on the pod, and welcome to What Matters.
Thanks for having me.
First thing we kind of wanted to get into was just, obviously, Nick has been your coach for you'll have to tell us how long now, Ruby, but you guys obviously have a great relationship, and when we sat down to start the podcast, we definitely thought you'd be a key guest to get on the pod and have all sorts of great insights, both from a coaching and sports science point of view, but also just from the perspective of an athlete that we coach. So
Yeah, I think we started working together 2017, I think. Neither of us really wanted to work with each other. I think I was like, I was 18 and I had just finished school and started uni, and it was like a really difficult transitional period in my life. And like the head coach at the Victorian Institute of Sport at the time said that I had to change coaches to Nick. Well, yeah, Nick was like sort of the sports scientist overseeing it. And yeah, because of, I guess, all that sort of transitional period in my life, I wasn't super motivated. I would say I was sort of juggling multiple things, and our coaching relationship at the start was pretty difficult. I would say, like, I was not the ideal athlete, and I think Nick also probably didn't understand me, maybe as well. Like, also dealing with like a 18-year-old, who wasn't sort of driving that coaching relationship. But I think obviously we got to know each other eventually, and it did work out, and we've developed a really good coaching relationship, but it definitely didn't start out easy. Well, I guess like if you look at most successful athletes, there's sort of that internal motivation and drive, and our autonomy, or like a wanting to do the training not just because you're told to. I would say it's coming from within, and working with your coach and being like, how can we make this better, and what more can I do? Whereas I would say at that time I was starting uni full time, which was like really challenging. I was also working in a bike shop and then trying to train, and I feel like, and also trying to have a social life. And I think between all those things, I was probably putting 25% of my energy into training because the rest was going into other things. And I think from a coach, sort of just seeing, because a coach doesn't really see all the other efforts that I was putting into like study or other things, they're in a high performance environment at the Victorian Institute of Sport, and they just see an athlete who's not really like who's sort of dragging their feet and not, you know, putting that intent, not working collaboratively. And I think on reflection, I probably, which eventually did happen, I needed someone to like say, hey, you need to put more energy into this and you could be really, really good, and come from it from more of like a positive motivational, like let's like change the energy and stuff. But I would say not Nick per se, but the whole institute at the time was like I just got given KPIs, basically like a performance metric, and I was like, if you don't hit that, you're out, kind of thing. Which, like, I mean, it's a carrot or stick thing, right? Like the stick does work to a degree. I didn't want to get kicked out, but I didn't feel motivated by that. It was more just like, oh, like if I want to keep doing this, I kind of have to put, I don't know, 40% in. Whereas I think I probably needed someone to be like, hey, let's like aim high and go for it, which I think eventually Nick and I did develop. But yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm surprised it did work, to be honest. I think we were both early. Like I was early into coaching too. Like I'd worked at mostly in swimming at that point, doing just sports science, not coaching. And you're very removed from coaching when you're just doing sports science. Like you're in charge of, you're dealing more with the coaches than the athletes, and you're not ultimately responsible for their performance, and you're not ultimately responsible for whether they train or not. All of my work was essentially directly with coaches. And when I started coaching Ruby, I'd only coached two people before that. I'd only coached Al Donahue and Lucas Hamilton, and Ruby was the third person. So I was learning too. Because I wouldn't act like that now. Like I would be, I would hope I would be more supportive and more positive around trying to do what Ruby said. Like I've learned a lot from, a hell of a lot from coaching Ruby. So I think it was a bit on both of us in those early days, because I wouldn't have been. I think technically the training I was giving you was good, but I don't think I was a very good coach back then. In terms of like global, overall coaching, I think I did the training science stuff well, but I don't think I coached well. And I would hope that now, I think if you look at not just our relationship, but the relationship I have with everyone I coach, like it's way different to what it was 10 years ago. Way different. Like it's not authoritarian. It's not, this is the training, you have to do it. Like it's not like that at all. And I think it's because I've learned from people like, a lot of it's learning from Ruby, because she's very honest with, we've had lots of discussions around this sort of stuff, heaps of discussions around it. So I think we've both learnt from each other and come out of it really well. Ruby's a better rider and I'm a better coach.
Yeah, that's super cool to hear. And as we've all spoken about in the past, like coach-athlete relationship is absolutely massively important, but yeah, also something that evolves and gets better with time, or you would hope gets better with time. And how long did it take? Like, obviously that was a long time ago. Then how long was it sort of between progressing from those early stages and juniors and that sort of thing, more younger athletes, and then moving into more sort of high performance stuff, and trusting each other with that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, I would say because we were mainly track focused at the time. And I think part of maybe the challenge in our relationship as a coaching relationship was that it wasn't like me coming to Nick as a private coach being like, hey, can you coach me? It was like we were just told, okay, you have to work together. And I think when you're not given that choice, that I think sometimes there can be a bit more resistance because it feels like, you're sort of being forced into something. But yeah, we aimed for the track, and I think, I guess there was no real road funding at the time, and I didn't really see like a road career. So we were really focusing on that. And it wasn't until the end of 2019 when Nick was like, hey, like you should really train hard for nationals. We're going to go for nationals. And I'd just done the hardest uni year of my life, basically, like studied super, super hard, and done really well. And I finished my exams, and then I got sick and I was just so tired at the end of the year. And Nick's like, no, go all in for road nats. Like, let's do this. And I think that was like him believing that like I could sort of go for it. Cause I'd done okay on the road, but nothing like super impressive that suggested I could go world tour, for example. And then, I had a lot of, I guess, zone 2 fresh tempo kind of work that I'd never really done much of from the track. I just had the best legs of my life. Like I was just, wow, like I now have this aerobic capacity that I'd never had, and did bay crits. And then I think second at nationals crit and 20th or something in the road race. So then I was like, oh, actually like super motivated for road, because it was like, this is fun now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then I guess Well, I'm keen later to go back in through the pod just from like those sort of early days and talk through your career and longevity in the sport. But if we just fast forward quickly, is now obviously having like such a much deeper coach athlete relationship that spans back over all that history and preparing for quite high level events and now being a professional, is that something that strengthens the coach athlete relationship, do you both think now? And you can obviously learn from those experiences and touch on those, or is it something that is just always stays the same? How do you guys see it now with this much history between performance of you guys?
You go, Rib. I'll go
Okay.
after you.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess like we do understand each other now. I would say, and like particularly, yeah, internationally, like time zones and stuff, it can, I guess it would be I think more difficult to create a coaching relationship now. So it's nice to already have that.
Mm.
And then I guess like, yeah, working on what we've had. But I think one thing is like, I guess it's also easy once you've sort of had these sort of, I've been world tour for this is my 5th year. So you can sort of also get sort of stuck in old ways and still trying to keep it like fresh and motivating and like challenging both, I guess, each other to be better, I think yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that's a good point about like we're not trying to build the relationship now. So we have I think that would, like what Ruby said, it would be very difficult with the amount of time we spend together because it's Ruby's in town for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, not long. So we're not trying to build anything. Like we communicate a lot while Ruby's overseas, but we don't talk a lot. We talk every few weeks, so we're not talking as much as we are here. Like we can ride together here; it's much easier. I think there's more. There's a lot of trust between the two of us. Like I obviously trust that Ruby's going to do the training and prepare the way she needs to, and I think she's got trust in me that whether I've made mistakes with her programming, but I think it's they're thought out mistakes. They're not like random mistakes. They're like we've gone into with a plan to do something that hasn't worked, which is I think fine. To keep pushing. I think one thing about I don't know, maybe like I think you could get complacent having a relationship like this for so long. It's quite rare to have a 10-year coaching relationship. I think complacency is something that you could have, and we've added. I think like the last few years we've added in people to the group. Like we've added in people this year to have some impact in what Ruby's doing. Like I'm pretty careful with who we'd add into the mix. But like I think we've got a good group now, a good group of people who can challenge me as well. Like I think there's not a lot of people around who would really challenge me in terms of what I'm doing. Not. Well, I think it's quite rare. Even you guys would probably find that it's quite rare that you get people who would constructively criticise and question what you're doing. Whereas we've got that now with people from the team and people who I really have a good relationship with and really trust. So I think that's important. But I think the relationship's evolved to a point now where it's, like a really good level of trust, but also like we push each other. Like Ruby pushes me as well. And I will push her in training. We did some stuff this summer, I was pretty confident would work. I know Ruby had some questions around whether it was necessarily the right approach or too risky, but I was pretty confident that it would work. And I think it has worked, which is good. I think it's something that'll hopefully keep evolving. It's not. I think this will keep. Hopefully, we've got to keep pushing each other to a point that I keep getting better and she keeps getting better.
I think just zooming in and touching on that. Obviously, Ruby's had multiple summers that have been very successful. So I suppose going with a plan that has some differences to the previous would be interesting to get. I suppose your thoughts on what that was and sort of why you decided to go down that, because obviously,
well, they have to be different. Like because we're I think the gains get smaller. Like Ruby doesn't have huge gain. There's no huge obvious gains to be made. Like her threshold's already very, very good. Her aerobic capacity is everything's very good now. It's not like we're going to add 20% to her performance. Like it gets more difficult to get better. The investment of training for the return you get is smaller. So we've got to keep trying to come up with ways to get better because there is a gap between Ruby and the best in the world, and we're trying to be the best in the world. So we've got to, and we're not going to do it by just doing the same stuff every year. So we've got to work out ways of working smarter, harder, different. Like there's no simple answer to it, and I don't think I've got the complete answer in my head. I've got theories about what I think we should do, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for Ruby now to get better. It's not just keep plodding along and you'll get better. Like Ruby's trying to add, 30 watts to a 5-minute power, which is a lot. 20, 30 watts. It's hard to do that. But the goal is to work out ways to do that.
Ruby, obviously you've got a very long-standing coach-athlete relationship with Nick, which definitely would help in this scenario. But how do you go into a summer? You've done well here before, and Nick's got some differences with the overall plan and how that's going to look moving into this one. Were you confident the whole time, or did it take a bit of chatting through that? How did that sort of look?
Yeah, I think this prep was to be honest, it was challenging mentally more than anything because I had bronchitis, like a viral kind of infection, at the start of December that sort of has hung around to like a post-viral bronchitis they still have now. So yeah, basically I don't have an infection anymore, but my lungs are still producing like a lot of mucus, and trying to figure out what was going on was pretty challenging because I wasn't ever really super, super sick or super tired, and I felt good and motivated and I was training, and then yeah, it just kept hanging around. And so yeah, and it was kind of clashed with like just the introduction of intensity. So I felt pretty uncertain about like pushing through, and I was in contact with multiple doctors sort of managing it. But I mean, at the end of the day, they can give you sort of general advice. Like obviously if I had a fever or like a really serious infection, I wouldn't keep training, but I never sort of had that. And then when I started the VO2 block, because we sort of did this big VO2 block, I found it really difficult because I guess when you're a bit uncertain about whether you're 100% healthy, it's pretty hard to be pushing yourself over the limit every day, kind of, because I did have a period of VO2 block that was like, I think I had a double session and it was going to be the 8th session in 7 days. And I think I didn't get through that. It was like probably one of the only days that I had to reschedule. But yeah, now I guess I'm still actually got this silly thing, and apparently some other athletes have it too. It's just sort of a post-viral like inflammatory reaction. But now I'm a bit more chill about it because I've had 8-9 weeks of it. So
Yeah, I think that's something that maybe isn't necessarily thought of sometimes when it's returning from illness or injury and stuff. I think people generally think of it as like a line in the sand and it's like yes or no to training, but often there's actually a lot of grey area and uncertainty around what you can and can't do. And it gets very complex and tricky to work that out. And sometimes there's a lot of trial and error in that as well. And I mean, credit to you to be able to be patient with it and Nick to work through that, because that's a really hard thing to do, I think.
Yeah, it makes me very nervous training through sickness. Like we had conversations every day about what to do. I don't think there's like Ruby said, it never got to the point where you just wouldn't train. Like if Ruby was sick, like feverish or sick, we would have pulled it straight away. And we spoke about that regularly. It's a really tough decision about what you do, whether you continue on with the planned prep or whether you pull back. There are quite a few people involved in deciding what we were going to do, and it is risky to train through sickness, because it'll go one way or the other. You'll either get through it the way Ruby did, or you'll completely break down and you'll get sicker and sicker, and then you'll potentially miss summer. I think a combination of planning and luck got us through.
Definitely super risky, but obviously paid off with having a really good summer thus far. But I guess with all that in mind, so if you zoom out to say September, October, Nick, till now, or till nationals and TDU, what was the plan there? Like, how did you guys sort of manage that period, and what did the training look like?
Well, September, October, we're still racing.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, really short prep, and it seems to get shorter every year.
Yeah.
It's a short prep. Like really, it was 8 weeks, seven or 8 weeks from when Ruby had a short, probably not long enough of a break after last year.
Until nationals, you mean?
Well, between the end of the year and starting back training properly, it becomes for the Australian riders. It's not just Ruby; it'd be all of the Australian-based pros, certainly the ones at Jayco, where there's some pressure to do well in summer. The break is really short. You have a couple of weeks off, and then you're back training. And then you've got 8 weeks to a nationals, which is not, it is what it is, but it's never going to be long enough. You could have 20 weeks and it wouldn't be long enough. But 8 weeks is really pushing it. So really it was 4 weeks of generally, foundation training, getting fit, some strength training, and then 4 weeks of race prep.
Yeah. And we spoke about this, I think, in the second episode, you and I, about the course at Nationals in Perth now being different to Bunanyong in previous years, and how you could probably afford to extend the general training phase out
Yeah.
and have a much shorter run in with the VO2 and like anaerobic work and stuff. Is that what you guys did, or was it more a traditional sort of 3 to 4 plus week VO2 block? It sounds like you're doing some pretty hard block periodization work in there. Just run us through all that stuff.
Yeah, we block periodized the VO2 stuff. It was just over 3 weeks of block periodization, but it was pretty solid. I don't think you could, it was probably as solid as you could make it, really. I think any more would be irresponsible. And then it was, 4 weeks before that of general prep, which is not, I think the VO2 block is fine. I don't think you need much longer than that. I'm not sure you'd get any bigger gains out of much longer if you fit going in. I think where you would get better gains is having longer before that, like longer foundation time. If you had 8 weeks, it would be amazing. But it is what it is. This is pro cycling. You never have that. You just don't get those big blocks of training. It's non-existent. So you have to work with what you work with, and all of the pros are in the same boat. They've all got 8 weeks, and they've all, they all want to be going well at nationals.
Yep, for sure. And I guess just to give the listeners a bit of an example of what we're talking about. So in something like the general fitness phase, those first 4 weeks where Ruby's getting fit again, obviously barring sickness and that sort of thing, is that just lots of unstructured endurance rides that you're programming, or is that what Ruby prefers?
I wouldn't say
Or is it
unstructured. The unstructured rides are racing. Like we use racing as part of that phase, like doing crits, local crits. Ruby loves them, and I think it's good training. It's also motivating. Also keeps her racecraft sharp. We get to race together, which is nice. I get yelled at for every crit for welding things closed and just generally bad tactics.
Is it nice that every Sunday you get towed up by your athletes?
Well, he's going to have to get used to it, doesn't he?
I'm used to it, mate. I didn't enjoy it at the start, but I'm so used to it now that it doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter.
And
I think I beat Ruby when she was maybe 17, and I haven't beaten her since. It doesn't matter.
I'm glad you got that one out on air. You've been holding that one in the whole podcast so far, but congrats, Nick.
It was my biggest win. That's what that's for.
But what about, the more endurance focused work? Is that more structured long efforts, like at a slightly higher intensity, or more
lots of focused,
like longer
I call it focused endurance work, which is basically zone 2, a cool way of saying zone 2 work, but long, focused power, like 20 to 40 minutes repeated efforts of endurance training. Lots of short strength training on the bike, like sprints, but in a big year to develop strength, like foundational sprint work. Lots of short VO2 work, like 40-20s, 30-30s, that sort of stuff. And then lots of just easy riding, like heaps of easy riding.
Yep. And is that something, Ruby, that you enjoy doing, those like longer, sustained 20, 40-minute efforts, or you much prefer to go down to like a crit and just not have to think about it too much?
I think the crits aren't so enjoyable the first month back training. It doesn't feel great. They're more fun when you're really fit. Zone 2 sort of training, there's LT1, Zone 2, focused endurance. Everyone wants some sort of, But in Melbourne, I would say it's not probably the best training environment for doing that with the traffic lights, and it's actually, compared to most other riding places like in Europe and stuff where you can sort of go out the door and start. It's probably more difficult, I would say, to do it here. But you can also, depends how long your ride is. And for me, I think the most important thing is it's such a long season with so many builds and a long time away from home, and using sort of these months also just to get a bit more balance in my life. And maybe, probably November is the one month of the year where I'm not 100% prioritizing training. I'd probably, obviously still do my training well, but try and, I don't know, spend some time with friends and family and, broaden my bubble a bit more than just sort of riding, which means it's probably not perfect for training. For that sort of general prep, I don't think you have to be 100% all in on every session. I think it's just sort of ticking that box, and then, focusing in when it really matters later on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's really important to be able to do that. I think that's where some people maybe make a mistake around summer training, is that you don't need, you can't be switched on from November through till September. It's not possible. You'd break somewhere. But you're physically training exactly how you should in November. But you're right, you're mentally not at 100%. I think that's important.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, if it's what if you zoom out and look at the whole season as a whole and training at 80% mental capacity instead of 100% at one time of the year actually lets you have a full season of success, then obviously that's definitely the best way to do it. And I guess that's something that a lot of people learn over time of actually, just putting themselves in those experiences and having full seasons year after year after year. And it's definitely a skill that we've seen athletes develop for sure. And so then I guess after that sort of general fitness phase, and you're starting to think more about running into summer and training's getting a little bit more serious, say like December, January time. What was the thoughts there behind the block periodization of like a VO2 block, Nick? And what did those sorts of sessions look like? And how did that? Obviously, it worked out pretty well for nationals and TDU, but run us through that.
I think most of it's training. Like my philosophy is less around training, like specifically for a course, and more around training for physiology, like underpinning physiology, and then the specific prep will take care of itself. Saying that, there's like, you can look at races and have an idea around what the requirements are. So nationals is a 2-minute climb, 1.5-minute climb, depends where you started from. Say it's a 1.5-minute climb. Like you kind of know what the worst case scenario will be for that climb, and you can train for the worst case scenario, like the hardest it's going to be. And the same with TDU, like those courses are really well known, and you know where the critical parts of those races are going to be and where it's relevant for Ruby. Like if you're going up Wollonga, it's not really a stage for Ruby it's not really her stage anyway. So there's no point spending all of your training time and your training budget trying to win Wollonga when it's her, like a rider like Ruby. That's not the stage that she's trying to win. She's trying to win other stages. So you have a pretty good idea of those. And then Cadell's, you kind of know, you know what Cadell's is. You're going up one climb or two climbs, but you know what the requirements are for Shallambra and Melville Road or whatever it's called. So I think there's a bit of training underlying physiology, but also keeping an eye on what the relevant physiology is. And the relevant physiology for nationals is you've got to be good for repeat 2-minute efforts plus the rest of the course. It's a bit the same for Cadell's, like it's a 3-minute climb, 2.5-minute climb, 3-minute climb. They're pretty similar in terms of the underlying physiology and then training that. And the block periodization, we used to do a block periodization a lot. Like it's not new. I think maybe it's newish in cycling, but that's how swimmers train. That's exactly how they train. They do lots of double sessions, lots of hard sessions, hard double sessions. You can structure it by doing longer VO2 work in the morning because they're physically and mentally more taxing. And then in an afternoon session could either be something like Q crit, which is essentially a VO2 session, or something that's a bit physically and mentally easier, like 40-20s, 30-30s. Like you can kind of always get through those sessions. You still get a really good physical stimulus, but it's not quite so mentally taxing because you can always get through it. Doing 3-minute efforts is really a draining session. Doing 40-20s is something you can always kind of do. So I think that's how we structured most of those weeks.
Yep, for sure. And then there is definitely, as you said, it's not a new type of training by any stretch of the imagination, but there is a lot more research coming out, especially about, as you said at the start of the podcast, Ruby's such a high level athlete already that you have to have this pretty solid stimulus to actually make any improvement. Actually stacking all these hard days day after day, or double days, or any type of really high intensity stimulus.
It's definitely not something for everyone. It's something you've got to kind of earn rather than just do it. It's not many people who I give that sort of training to. In fact, there's very few. It's something that in the right circumstance can be quite beneficial, but you've got to be really careful with it. It's really easy to go too far, and then you've tipped them over the edge. Really easy.
Yeah, equally, you could take an athlete like a masters or a junior athlete that's not had that much exposure to that sort of training, and then all of a sudden they're just doing overtraining essentially.
Masters riders would probably be okay. They'd probably get through it because the level of masters is almost World Tour.
Is that
World Tour is kind of a development program for masters racing? So masters is why
you got dropped at Sandown last night in Masters A grade? Do you even do Masters A grade? Masters B grade? Possibly?
No, I did Masters A grade. Masters B grade I'd be okay with. I set up.
Nice. Very good. Well, we're definitely not here to talk about your racing or our racing. So, but Ruby, do you have preference on any of that sort of training phase, or are you kind of just happy to do whatever training Nick sets you, or you definitely feel more involved when you're doing those sort of hard VO2 sessions and feel like you're actually training for something versus the easier stuff?
I think I got pretty sick of 2-minute efforts by the end of that block. I did a lot of those they're never fun. I think like threshold training or longer stuff is kind of like feels uncomfortable, but it's kind of like you can get into a rhythm. But I feel like with that sort of VO2 work, you never really feel like good doing it. You just sort of do more watts. It just is really uncomfortable training. And also mentally, you have to really switch on because you're sort of getting to that point of pain and suffering that you need to push past that and keep going. Yeah, and I think, I was a little bit like concerned that I wasn't doing any sort of longer efforts. Like I didn't really do much threshold at all. And funnily enough, my sensations like at nationals and even TDU, I felt like pretty good with longer stuff. Like on the corkscrew stage, I felt like really good. Like I held my climber in the lead in, dropped back for her like on the flatter section, got over the climb, then rode really hard to the next corkscrew and still felt pretty good. And I was surprised off the sort of training I'd done. I hadn't done any like 10-minute efforts or at that power or I'd done mostly shorter efforts. And it was just interesting, like on reflection, looking back at my training where I'd done, that sort of zone 2 training and then like the really high VO2 short efforts that I still felt good at like, I don't know, a 10-minute duration or even like 40 minutes when you look at the whole power file from corkscrew chasing and then back into corkscrew. So, I don't know. I think I do trust Nick. And I think like one thing he said pretty early on in our relationship was like, you just got to like train really hard. And like, if you put in the effort and you train hard, like at the end of the day, there's like some preps are slightly better than other preps, but like that's like 90% of the way there is just going hard in your sessions.
Yeah, for sure. Nick, do you think that with I get like great insight into TDUs and like the corkscrew stages there? I guess that comes back to what you were saying, just about training physiology and not specifically for the event, especially for a professional that's
Well, I mean,
racing so much.
there's a plethora of evidence on it's essentially polarized training. The way that we structured it, and there's a lot of evidence around polarized training increasing like your critical power or threshold. Like there's no reason why. It also makes intuitive sense. Like you don't need to train at a certain duration to be good at that duration. There's other ways around it. And there's a lot of people who just do polarized training. We do a mix of polarized and pyramidal training depending on the type of the race requirements and the time of the year. But certainly in a race prep block for either the classics or summer in Australia, it's mostly polarized based.
Yeah. No, it's been super interesting insight into the summer, and obviously it worked really well. So I bet you guys are pretty excited to crack into the rest of the year. The next thing I kind of want to do was zoom out and go back into a bit earlier, like when Ruby was coming up through juniors and things, and we spoke a little bit about this off air before, Ruby's a case where a lot of other people, she's been in the sport for such a long time, and a lot of other people that you would have raced in juniors, Ruby, aren't racing anymore. They've either quit the sport or found other avenues or something like this. How important do you think longevity in the sport is? And what are some strategies, even from a young age, that or your attitudes toward the sport that you actually enable to have a long career in the sport?
Yeah. I started in Brunswick Cycling Club, which tends to come up a lot these days. But I think the reason why it has sort of created quite a few successful athletes and has such a community around it is that it hasn't sort of focused in on like training juniors from a really young age or like setting up some sort of elite pathway. It's really been a community sort of it's around participation and I guess getting that racing experience, then maybe not sort of specializing or becoming an elite sort of junior academy too early. And I think the benefit of that is like a lot of the kids that I went through training with who were super, super successful, like won everything or sacrificed everything at a young age, you sort of get to like, I don't know, 16 or 18 and you haven't had that balance that allows you to find out who you are. And then they sort of get to that stage. And I think a lot of parents are very motivated on behalf of their kids. And I don't think that ever ends well either. So it's sort of actually giving your kid the opportunity to sort of have the access to do it if they want to, develop friends, develop a enjoyment and a sort of self-motivation, which is the essential part of it, because every really good athlete is self-motivated. And if the parent's driving the motivation, it's just never gonna, like, eventually the kid will stop. So, and I don't think most parents realize this because there's some crazy people out there. But yeah, I guess I had that and I sort of just kept going at it. And I did always love racing. Like, I wasn't a great trainer, but I did really enjoy racing. And I just kept racing, and especially like club crit kind of thing. Like, I've always grown up racing like with big bunches in mixed racing, because I mean, they didn't always have women's grades then either, but that's where I learned how to ride the bunch and how to execute a lot of the skills that I have now. Um, and then, yeah, at the time I didn't really see a career, I would say, in cycling. And now there definitely is a career. It's like very professional, the women's side of road cycling. But I always saw at the time there wasn't. And I studied pretty hard to basically set myself up to have a career where I could still ride. And I didn't really see this as a profession. And I would say that's probably where things, if it was 18 or 17 coming through now, I would see that pathway and be probably more motivated to sort of go all in on that earlier. And I think that might be, for some people, the way to go. But yeah, also having the balance of study and more to who you are than just being a cyclist at sort of that transitional phase of teenager to adult, which is really difficult for everyone, helped me particularly.
Yeah, I think that's unreal advice for a lot of, especially young people listening, is, yeah, definitely to just, I guess, boiling it down to keeping it enjoyable and holistic. And you see, so it's such a hard sport and there's so many hours that go into it that the turnover rate of people that leave the sport is so high. Do you think, has that attitude, like, and core values, have they stayed the same throughout your entire career, or as it became more of a job and more pressure to perform, do you think it's still about keeping it fun, or do you think there needs to be, like, how do you see it now and for the last, say, 5 to 8 years?
Yeah, I would feel like there was sort of a turning point for me. I think I touched on it earlier, where I was sort of dividing my energy between other things. Yeah, I didn't get selected for this track academy, which I don't know if it's still like the pathway to sort of track Olympics program. I was really upset about it, and I was kind of like, well, I either go all in now or I direct my energy elsewhere. And I went all in kind of at that point. I just decided, no, I'm going to put, like, I don't know, 95% of my energy. And then, yeah, that's sort of what snowballed into becoming pro on the road and going down the path I am now. And I would say, like, yeah, the fun aspect is, like, I guess I now really enjoy training. Like, I really get a lot of satisfaction from, like, doing good training blocks, which I never used to. Like, I really do enjoy that side of things. And I still enjoy racing. I would say racing, I guess the crashing and the risk now, especially like in the classic season, I would say, like, yeah, crashing is not fun. And it is really scary at times. But when you make the final in a really cool race, then it's definitely fun. So I'd say, yeah, it's not all fun, and there's some really hard parts to, like, yeah, living overseas and going through injuries and all of that. But I would say overall the good outweighs the bad. And yeah, I feel pretty lucky actually to be able to do this, because I know, yeah, a lot of people, or I used to also dream of doing this. So I still kind of, yeah, feel super grateful, I guess, to have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, so obviously really disappointing to miss out on that track academy, but then to make, I suppose, a mindset change or decision to go full gas for the road. Obviously, those programs can quite often be quite track centric, and there's obviously not as much opportunity on the road, particularly at that time. So run us through how that looked. Did you go find I suppose, an independent team? What races were you doing, and how did that all sort of look?
Yeah, well, basically, I went to Junior Worlds in 2016. And, like, I was okay there. Like, I wasn't incredible, but we won the exhibition Madison. We qualified third. We, like, stuffed up the final. And I was like, I think I came 7th or something in the IP. So it was, like, not terrible, but not, I don't know, world champ. And I wasn't really training, like an elite athlete at the time. I was studying and then I went to uni, and I was trying to get really good grades in uni to sort of keep my post-grad options open. And, like, I was sort of in my exam periods, I would basically locked myself away and spent all my time studying or training, kind of Sarah Gigante mode. But no, yeah, between that, like I really struggled to sort of, I would say, train at the level that I needed to be at. And I didn't make the academy, and then I sort of I was really upset because I just felt like that the Oz cycling didn't really see my potential. And to be honest, I think part of that was that I wasn't sure whether I had the ability to do it, and was really upset and just kind of like was like, it's, well, I either go all in or I just don't worry about it anymore, and sort of went all in with sort of this newfound motivation and just wanted to beat all the academy riders to try and get into the academy. And I eventually, within a year, made it into the track academy. And once I was there, I was living in Adelaide in Inglethorpe, which is like a small, well, it's like in the academy housing. So we lived 3 townhouses in a row and with our other academy members. And we had basically very limited autonomy. We were told exactly what training we had to do. We'd often have double session days, and we didn't get to choose where we lived. And it was sort of, my whole life was like studying on my laptop or training in Adelaide, living in a suburb pretty far from the centre. And I was then like, at that point, I really wanted to make it onto the road because I wanted to leave Adelaide. So it was like this newfound motivation to get a road contract, so then I could get out of Adelaide. So I sort of had like this series of little like goals to change my environment, I guess. And yeah, finished my degree and got the road contract just at the perfect time. And then, moved overseas, and it was definitely better than living in Adelaide, just where I was particularly. But yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I suppose during that whole time when you're racing NRS and all that kind of thing, you're still on that track program and working through that and living in Adelaide.
Yeah. I was racing NRS, so that was kind of like, there wasn't much opportunity to go overseas because it was during COVID. So my only opportunities was nationals and the TDU, sort of like, we had like a Santos Festival of Cycling, which was like an NRS TDU, and the other NRS races. And I sort of just was like, I'm going to try and win as much as I can in domestically and hope that like Green Edge and I think I had 2 offers, like one from EF and one from Green Edge by the end of it. So yeah, I was just sort of, really motivated to try.
You definitely won a lot, Ruby. There was one season there you won every stage of the NRS.
Yeah.
That's a good year.
Does help. Yeah, it does help.
Yeah.
Well, the year before I was racing with Sarah.
There's not many people who win every stage of a series.
I was I was on a warpath.
Yeah.
I think, though, there is a theme there, like through juniors, through the NRS, when you're in the track academy, and then still through as a professional. The whole theme there, a lot of the time that I'm seeing, is that you thought about it holistically and thought about what's best for you and what makes you enjoy the sport, where you lived, what sort of racing you were doing, what programs you were in. And I think it's pretty easy for people to just, as you said, there's no autonomy. They just do what they're told and they tick boxes, and the only thing that they think matters is results. Whereas it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it does seem like through the entire journey from Brunswick through to now, there has been like this, I guess, idea of like, you need to be happy to perform, and what makes you happy and where you live and what you're doing is actually just as important as getting the result sheet as it is as training. Would you agree?
I think so. Yeah. I would say, like, I think it depends what your goals are. And I think if your goal is to, like, it sort of changes a lot, but depending on what your goals are and what you want to do, and what makes you happy. But I would say, like, the balance is really good overall. I think you need balance in your life and like multiple identities, and not just be like all in on the cycling your whole life, particularly in that like teenager kid stage. I don't think that that's healthy. Well, not for me anyway. Like some people maybe, but I think having a bit more balance. But I do think at a certain stage you have to commit and like make some pretty big sacrifices if you want to do the sport at a very high level. Like nearly everyone who makes it to, like, I don't know, a professional level has made sacrificed other things in their life and really got kind of obsessive in that phase. Like not forever, but that. And I think for me, I needed to do that and really go all in on the training because, it's just such a high level. You can't really float through with lots of balance, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. No, that's really good insight, and it's very cool to see your longevity in the sport and how you've been able to make a fantastic career when there were all these different options and pathways that you could have chosen from. And obviously, Nick, your involvement in that as well, with, as you said, being the same coach for such a long time, is obviously pretty massive as well. So kudos to both of you. But yeah, it's pretty epic to hear from both perspectives, I think. Well, yeah, it's been great to have you on. Some awesome insight for a lot of people listening, and best of luck with the rest of this season, Ruby, after such a great start, and Nick. And yeah, we'll catch up with you guys over the rest of the season for sure.
Will do.
Yeah, thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on,
Sweet.
Rubes.
Thanks, Ruby. Chat to you later.